Hey guys. For those of you who are wondering where is Wave 2 and Wave 3 for Spoopathon, let me explain. Hey guys, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name's Nicole. And if you're sticking around with me once again, thank you for staying with me on this bookish journey. It is appreciated more than you know. For all of you guys that celebrate it, happy Halloween, happy All Hallows Eve, happy Dia de los Muertos, happy fall y'all, whichever one you're doing. I thought I would get just a little bit festive since this is probably the last video for October before Halloween. So donned a few little spider webs, my wonderful little Hocus Pocus sweatshirt. It says Sanderson's Bed and Breakfast, established 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts. Children's Day free. Funny story, I was actually at a farmer's market recently and I was wearing this, and the girl actually asked me if this was a real place that she could go and stay, and I was like, if it was, I would not bring my kids there, if you know Hocus Pocus. But it was cute. And then finally when she realized what it was, she was like, oh my God. So like I said before, what happened to Spoopathon Wave 2 and Wave 3 videos? There's a simple explanation for it. Chaos kind of happened. I was going through and working through my Wave 2 prompts when my oldest son had a few days off for a holiday here, as well as a teacher learning day at his school. Only for a few days later, the teacher to call me, asked me to pick him up because he got a fever and he just wanted to sleep in class. He was just so out of it. So I went and I got him, stayed home the next day, absolutely fine. Other than that, he had this low fever, went back to school, started coughing. Luckily, it was towards the end of the week at that point. And he came home and he had a cold and he gave it to everybody in our house except for my husband. So we all had head colds, stuffy noses, sore throats, a cough that felt like you were putting sandpaper in your throat. I lost my voice a few times, which is why I wasn't filming. So my voice is still a little gravelly. I'm still a little nasally. I have a cough every once in a while, but enough to where I could finally get in front of you guys and film without, you know, hacking up a lung or whatever. But we're all fine. My kids are fine. They're coming out of the cold. They are on the road to recovery. We are doing good. And my husband is lucky because he still hasn't shown any symptoms. So hopefully that'll be good, so that we can go out there and celebrate Halloween in, I think it's what, three days now, 3 or 4 days now. But I did go ahead and I decided to just put waves 2 and 3 together. I will let you know what I'm reading for wave 4 because I am currently working on wave 4, which is just pretty much one book according to the board. But hopefully I will complete that in time. If I read another one, like I said, I might let you know what I'm reading right now for wave 4, and then if it changes, include that in my next video. Or the video after that. So as you can remember, we finished wave 1. I said that for my last book for wave 1, I was reading Not Your Average Hot Guy by Gwenda Bond. Told you a little bit about it. I said for right at that point, it was a 3. If it changed, I would let you know. It did change a little bit. It bumped up to a 4, only slightly, but it was entertaining. This is kind of a rom-com take on an end of the world scenario, featuring a little mini romantic relationship between a human girl and the Prince of Hell, who gets incorrectly summoned, and they have to fight basically this cult that wants to take over the world using oh my gosh, what is it? It's the staff of, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. It is the staff that was used, or the Spear of Destiny. I'm sorry, staff. The Spear of Destiny. It was funny. It was cute. It had some cute little moments. Gave me a lot of Good Omens feels, like the show. I haven't read the book, but the show, how it just kind of presented this kind of end of the world apocalyptic scenario with like laughs and like kind of cuteness, if that's a thing. Get that here. I've heard, I know there's a sequel to this. I'm not so sure I'm going to pick it up. If I see it for the right price, I might. Because this one just kind of left off. I felt good. I didn't feel a pull to read the sequel, but we never know. So that was basically the end of it for wave 1. Right after, I'm using my nice little board here, right after we did our last book for wave 1, I had the points to heal. We had a nice little city break. And then we were up for sprints again. So for sprints, the prompts don't really count. So it's kind of like a read whatever you want. So I figured that was the best time to read October's Literature Club book pick. And that was Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This was one, if you remember, I said, if you'd asked me a year ago if I was going to pick up a book, like an alien smut book, I would have been like, no, that's not really my thing. I remember it making the rounds on BookTube, and everybody was reading it, and they were laughing about picking it up, saying that they were surprised at how good the storyline was. Perked my curiosity, put it on my watch list. Finally, it popped up as the book of the month pick, and I was like, all right, I'm going to read it. I loved it. It was 5 stars. I did not think it was going to be 5 stars when I first started out, because I will say, trigger warnings. In the beginning, you have these girls, for whatever reason, only America gets alien abductions, apparently, in this book. But all these girls are 22, they're single, they get abducted by like 2 races of aliens. One of them they call like the basketball people because they're like orangey and tall and whatever. And they want to basically use them for literal human trafficking. And there's sexual assault in the beginning. And it took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting it. Even though I knew that the girls were getting abducted, they were supposed to be transported, and that was kind of part of the theme, I didn't know that it was going to be like that. It's not very graphic, I will say that, which was nice, but it did take me by surprise. So definitely pay attention to the trigger warning on that. It's within like the first like 3 chapters, I think, and then it's not there anymore. So I was not knowing what I was going to expect from that, but basically en route, the spaceship that has basically kidnapped them is malfunctioning. They have to drop their cargo, meaning the girls, to go get their ship repaired, and then they want to come back for them. So they drop the cargo. The girls basically crash into this snowy, icy planet, and they choose Georgie to become kind of their leader, only because she was strong enough to fight back against one of the aliens that had abducted them. And so they kind of respect her in that capacity, and she's been now designated their leader. So they send her off to try to find food, another person to help. They don't know where they are. Some people still think they're even on like Earth, and they're just like in Antarctica or, like Alaska, somewhere where there's snow. They have no idea, but some of them still think that. Quickly, they find out they're not. And while Georgie is out trying to find help, she does find help in the form of Vectel. And Vectel is the chief of this alien species that at first I thought they looked a lot like Avatar from like the movie Avatar, not like Nickelodeon Avatar, the real one. When Vectel comes into the scene, I'm sorry, the story changed completely. I started loving it. I love Vectel. There is some different anatomy features. I will say some of the favorite, funniest scenes in this is when they are basically analyzing each other's anatomy and the funny things that they assume about one another and just the way that they call things out. And it just had me chuckling. Vectel sees her as his mate because in their small grouping of aliens, they only have like 3 or 4 females. And so there's a lot of males that don't have a mate, and that's all they want. And it's portrayed in such a sweet way because they just don't feel complete without their mate, and all they want to do is have this mate that they can take care of, because that's what they do. They take that kind of, not necessarily alpha role, but a very traditional role of, you are my mate, I want to love you, I want to protect you, I want to feed you, I want to, just be there for you. And it's just so sweet. And one of the other sweet things is that when they're around their mate and they're happy, they purr. And I lost it because it was funny, but it was also like the cutest, sweetest thing for this big, huge, massive, muscular, like alien dude that like looks like he could destroy something, to be like purring for like this little small human girl that he's like in love with. So it's just, it had some comical moments because they can't speak each other's languages, and how she has to learn to communicate with him when he finds out that there's other women that are trapped. So he's happy because now he thinks that he might not be alone in getting a mate from this, that there will be other men in his tribe that will be able to have mates, and kind of the fulfillments of that and the sweetness of that. And the like, kind of like at the same time, the girls are dying because they're not able to survive in this. So they have to find sort of like a parasite that the girls will have to ingest in a way in order to survive. So there's a lot of things that they come against. Plus, they don't know if the aliens that kidnapped them are going to be coming back at all. The girls just want to go home to Earth. They don't know if that's going to be possible. And you have Vectel and his tribe that they want the girls to stay because these are their mates. And what are you going to do if the one you love wants to leave? So it actually was a really great storyline, and I loved it, and I highly recommend it. It was 5 stars for me. I will definitely pick up the rest of the series. Found out there are actually a lot more books and novellas with this series. I was surprised, but I will be happy to continue it because yes, the storyline was great. Pick it up. It's good. I loved it. So after that, I went and I was going through a little bit of, I don't know what I want to read. So I just started kind of mood reading, and I ended up picking up Moon Touched. And that is the first book in the Zodiac Wolves series. It's sort of a paranormal romance, and it features a young girl who is a half-breed. Her father is the chief of one of the wolf tribes, and her mother was human. So she's kind of treated really, really badly. She's beaten up, she's bullied and everything. And her only hope is that there's supposed to be this big kind of conference or celebration amongst all the tribes. They'll all get together, and the younger wolves will finally get their chance to turn to a wolf, because you don't turn into a wolf until I think you're like 22. She doesn't even know if she has the power to turn into a wolf, but she's hoping that she'll turn into a wolf. She'll finally come into her wolf powers, that there will be a mating ceremony done, that hopefully she'll meet a mate who will really love her and she can get away from her tribe. What happens is she ends up getting her wolf form, and she is mated to the son of the Sun Wolf tribe. And they're very warlike, and right before this, the son of that tribe was just bullying her as well. So she can't believe that she's going to be mated to this guy. He can't believe that he's going to be mated to her. He rejects her publicly in front of all the tribes, hundreds of wolves. And then without warning, the Sun tribe attacks her tribe and starts killing all of its members, and she's like the only one to escape. She is taken in by I can't remember the name of it, but they're kind of referred to as the Snake tribe, the Moon tribe. They're an outcast tribe of wolves, or unit of wolves, that they've been rejected because they align themselves with moon witches instead of the sun witches that all the other tribes go to. And for that, they're outcasted. So they're wanting their place back with the tribes, but they're not treated nicely as well. So they kind of take her in, and the young chief of that tribe, right away you can tell he's starting to have feelings for her, but he knows that she's mated to somebody else. But you're finding out that not all is as it seems, and maybe the mating isn't what it was supposed to be. There is a very steamy scene that goes on for quite a few pages, and yeah. But I was actually very surprised by this. I gave this one 4 stars. I do want to continue the series. It left on a little bit of a cliffhanger. I really liked the heroine in it because, you know, you always kind of root for this girl that's seen as the outcast and you know, abused. And like I said, trigger warnings, there is strong abuse in there by her family, by other members of the tribe. She only has a brother that really looks out for her. So just kind of those feelings that go along with that, if that is something that might upset you. But I thought it was really, really good. And yeah, 4 stars. And that one I basically did for one of the wave prompts. I'm going to do it like I did in the last video, where I will show you all the prompts that the book's fulfilled. You've probably seen it for at least the other 2 books that I did by now. But that's the way that I'll do it. So I won't read through the prompts because that would just take way too long. So after I finished that one, I ended up finally on my Libby app, the Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout came available, and I wanted to continue that journey because I am really liking her books. And this is the 2nd book in the Blood and Ash series. So you have Poppy and you have Castile. And you found, like, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read the first one, but this is a continuation of their kind of war that's kind of going on. You kind of know what happened between Castile and Poppy in the first one. Like I said, I really don't want to give away spoilers, so I apologize if this seems a little jumbled, but it's basically a combination of like an enemies to lovers, wars on the horizon, possibly a sort of harem like or 3 throuple kind of insinuations. But you have werewolves, you have a sort of vampire-like creature, you have Atlanteans, or a form of what she is, Armentrout has written up to be kind of the Atlantean culture, which was very interesting in a way that I hadn't really seen it. I loved the witty rapport in this. This one did end up being a 5-star as well. It was probably on the lower 5-star, just because at the beginning I was starting to get a little annoyed with kind of Poppy's rejection and annoyance at Castile. And then at the same point, she still kind of wants him. But there was some steamy scenes in it. There were some, the world that they create is just really interesting. She does bring in some new characters that were really great. You do get to know a lot of the backstory and of the Atlanteans, of what they're trying to do, of what Castile's trying to do and what he's gone through. So I will say once again, check trigger warnings because there is abuse, sexual assault references, battles, fighting, you know, there is a few things. So I would check that just to make sure you're comfortable with that. But it was a really good book. Obviously going to continue the series because I have to see where this goes. It left off on quite a big cliffhanger, but I really enjoyed that one. So like I said, 5 stars, and that one was for one of the other zombie wave tiles. At this point, I already had well more than enough points to do the 300 points to fix a weapon. I've been kind of crossing this off as I go along. So I already had that, so I did that. My city break was, like I said, I was starting to feel a little bit better at this time, so my husband took me to our local farmer's market, and my little treat to myself was getting creme brulee from one of the stands because that is one of my favorite desserts, and it was fantastic, and now I just want to go back through like every Saturday to get it. So that was basically the end of wave 2. So then I wanted to go on to wave 3, and so for wave 3, I went and I picked up Vespertine, and then I DNF'd it. I was kind of upset by that because this was on one of my watch lists that I had from when I found out it was going to be released. I ended up getting it. I loved the cover. It just sounded so good to me. And then it wasn't. And this was basically about a girl named Artemisia who she's raised by nuns. There's monsters, I guess, on the horizon that they're fighting, and in a way of trying to protect them, she ends up basically getting possessed by this revenant or a demon. And it's kind of like how she's going with that to kind of work and fight the monsters. And sounded great, but I didn't care. Like, I got, over 100 pages in, and this isn't a very thick book. And the world was just, it was like a lot of contradictions. Like, you had the nuns and the priests and the religious, like, kind of orders talking about, like, the sins of the monsters and how they were evil and how all this stuff was evil. But then they partnered with them in a way of using their powers to fight against the monsters. So it was kind of like, when I tried to explain it to my husband, he said it was almost like Pokemon, where you caught it and then you used it to fight. And that was pretty much kind of what it was. But the sad thing is they were talking about it all being evil and all these, like, monsters or ghosts or whatever. But when it went into it, they had this little list at the end of what you would fight. And they had them broken in different orders, like the revenants and all the demons. And what you realize is, like, there's feverlings, which was death by fever. A gaunt was a death by famine. A frostbane was a death by exposure. And I'm like, well, doesn't this just mean that anybody who, like, dies by the way you die, you come back and become these monsters? I'm like, if that's the case, then why don't you guys, like, cremate your dead instead of burying them? I mean, I get it. At some point, they're talking about being in a war and, like, the other soldiers are getting turned really quickly. But it just was like, so enough, and all in all, you guys are fighting against the dead of your own. And I was just like, this seems a little weird. The other thing I didn't like was Artemisia. No personality whatsoever. She just kind of walked around in her day. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to have any friends. She didn't have, like, any kind of rebel personality. Like, she just lacked personality. And probably the thing that I liked the most in here was the revenant that kind of possessed her had a little bit of personality, but it was just kind of like, I didn't feel like it was really going anywhere, and it was just kind of them talking back and forth. And it's not like she really had been trained in anything, really. She fed the animals. So I'm like, it just, for me, felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. I tried to, like, skim ahead to see if maybe I could find, like, a teaser for something that was like, ooh, how does that happen? No, but I did end up finding out who the villain was, and I just was underwhelmed and was like, nah. And then I thought, I could finish this, or I could go find something that I want to read. So sadly, I did DNF this. It just wasn't there for me. I didn't get pulled in emotionally to this story. So the next one that I ended up picking up was another ebook, and that is, I have to look at notes because it's a long title. And that was, I was reincarnated as a villainess in an Otomi game, like, kind of world, but all the boys still love me. And I thought that was a funny title. It was on my Libby app, and it was a manga, so it was a little short read. I knew I could get it out for one of the waves because I was on, like, it's the last week or so of October. It's getting close. I knew I still had, like, wave 3 and wave 4 to finish. And it was funny. It ended up being a 4-star read for me, very low 4-star. But it was funny in the sense that it reminded me of the I Was Reincarnated as a Villainess anime that's out there on, like, Crunchyroll. And I really loved that one. It made me laugh. It's probably one of my more favorite animes to watch. And this one had a lot of that because you have a girl who, she has passed away in her world, and she's reincarnated into a character in an Otome game that she played in her previous life. But she's the villainess. And so it's kind of like, well, I don't want to meet the villain's end because that's really bad. So she's trying to do things that would keep her from meeting that really horrible game ending that she's used to. And all in all, while this is going on, she's actually making the people that would normally be her enemies in the game her love interests. So it is a big reverse harem. anime. Full of laughs. Like I said, it gave me a lot of the same vibes as the I Was Reincarnated as the Villainess anime. And so I enjoyed it. It was cute. Volume 1 was a lot of backstory into kind of how things are going, how she gets herself involved with one of the main love interests as a child. So once again, like the anime, because that's kind of the direction they went. So you don't have a lot of the romantic antics of an anime in this volume. You kind of have to wait until she's at the school or whatever it is that all the main things are going to take off at. This is the backstory for it all. But it was still fun. It was a funny read, and I'll be looking for the next volume because it wasn't on Libby, so I'm gonna have to find another way of getting that one. And that one was for one of the prompts, one of the zombie wave prompts. So I got points from there, not as many as I was getting from the other ones. But the next book that I picked up is Lark. And I know that this one has a lot of controversy. I don't know too much about it, so I'm not going to get into it because I don't know a lot about what was going on. I don't do TikTok, so I don't know too much. I just know that a lot of people said that this book was really hyped and it didn't live up to the hype. I didn't really know it, so I kind of went into it a little blind. This was actually, I borrowed this from my mother-in-law. She had got it first. She said she really liked it. So, you know, it gave it hope. This was a 3-star for me, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, so this was a 3-star for me, and I would say like it barely made 3-star. Like if I would have taken off 0.01 more like points, it would have been a 2. The core of it was good. You have this girl, there are 6 worlds. All are ruled over by different rulers who have different abilities. She herself is a wildling, and the main girl is Isla, and she's a wildling, which is kind of like, to me, it was almost like an earth magic type of being. And every 100 years, they have to go to the main island of Lark to be in this competition and break the curses, because everybody has these curses. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then they said that there's, you know, love on the horizon. And I'm like, awesome. Because you find out that Isla's curse is that they are doomed to eat the hearts of those they fall in love with. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. So, like I said, core concept, good. And then it kind of fell apart. All of the curses, I mean, although it could end in death for some of them, there was only one other one that was really bad, where it's like nobody in that population lives beyond 25, which was sad. But other ones was like, oh, you're a moon, you have moon magic, but you're not allowed to go out during the night or something, or you're not allowed to go out during the day. And I'm like, okay, that's not that bad. Another one was like, they lost their ability to fly. And I'm like, okay. And then like the other one was like, on a full moon, the oceans, like you have to stay away from the oceans and the sea because you could, they'll swallow you up. And I'm like, okay, so you go inland on the full moons, you know, like there was ways to avoid it. Whereas like, if you have to eat the heart of the person you love, or you can't live beyond 25, I'm like, that's a pretty serious one. It felt like things were out of order. You didn't know what rules were for breaking the curse, or like what, like, you know, there's usually a rhyme or some type of puzzle that you have to solve. That I didn't find out until like 160 pages in, already after other competitions happened. So would have been helpful to have that earlier on. There was really not that much. This was more plot driven, not a lot of in-depth character relationships or backstory, which I felt really would have helped this book, because if you're supposed to be rooting for people to team up or be a love interest or anything, you need those kind of relationship dynamics. You need more in-depth on your characters. There was a character who actually, I felt like they really could have not even been in the book, and this book still would have been fine. So, and then there were things that didn't make sense, like they were left opened. There was an icy maze that they needed to go through underwater, and at the end she's exhausted, Isla's exhausted, and she grabs this like glowing tablet and she mentions like, oh, I don't even know what's written on the tablet, but everybody's gasping. And I'm like, okay, well, what's written on the tablet? I don't know. They've never addressed that. I don't know. There never really needed to be a tablet because you never find out what's on it. So it was just kind of stuff like that. The romance in it was really kind of teasing, tame, very YA, not really steamy at all. You already know pretty much who the villain's gonna be. You already kind of know. You given the clue really early on, which was kind of like, okay, let's just see how this unravels. Things that they end up searching for. One of the things they're searching for, when they do find it, it is very anticlimactic, very what the heck. Towards the end, the last like 50 to 75, maybe 100 pages, felt like it was going to be good and close it up well. And then it turned into like one of those Bond villain moments where you're kind of sideswiped by, you knew who the villain was, but you didn't know why they were the villain. And like, it kind of goes into that, well, I am the villain and I'm really so-and-so and this is my backstory and I'm going to give you everything now type of Bond villain Scooby-Doo ending, why I did everything. And so that was just kind of a letdown as well. And then it just kind of flopped after that with like the ending. There was like one scene that had me like, ooh, and then it went again. So like I said, I think the core was good. It just really wasn't executed that well. The characters were not that thought out. The relationships were not really explained. When you do find out the end and why the villain is the villain, you're kind of like, what? Not because of shock. You knew who they were, but just the spin on what it was, because there really is only like one mention of something in passing prior and nowhere in that context. So it felt like that was it felt like a lot of things were kind of getting pulled out. Things were kind of put in as an afterthought. So, was it the most? No, it was far from being the worst book I've ever read, but it just was very disjointed, very kind of just here than there. A lot of things you got after the fact that would have been good later on. So just kind of a mishmash. But like I said, 3 stars, wasn't horribly bad, but wasn't horribly good either. So that one was my other wave 3 prompt, meaning I completed all of wave 3. I got my 450 points to pass the raid shop. So all I have left on is this wonderful little wave 4 square. And for my final book, I am reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. I am still working through that. And excuse me, I hope to be done with that soon. I will let you guys know my thoughts on it in an upcoming video. But it looks like hopefully I will survive Spoopathon. You know, stay tuned because God forbid I run out of time. But I really hope that I do. I've had so much fun doing it. And yeah, so like I said, if there were any, did you guys do Spoopathon? Have you survived? How are you doing? Did you get all your waves done? What did you read for October? Did you read anything spooky? Did you kind of like go my way and be like, maybe I wasn't feeling too spooky this month, and just kind of mood read and see where that fit? But I hope you guys had a great October. Like I said, if you do celebrate Halloween or All Hallows Eve or Dia de los Muertos, I hope the holiday brings you joy and fun with a few light scares. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.